Three Foes of the Family by G.K. Chesterton. It was certainly a very brilliant lightning flash of irony by which Mr. Aldous Huxley lit up the whole loathsome landscape of his satirical utopia of synthetic humanity and manufactured men and women by the old romantic question of Brave New World. The quotation comes, of course, from that supreme moment of the magic of youth, nourished by the magic of old age, when Miranda the marvelous becomes Miranda the marveling, at the unique wonder of first love. To use it for the very motto of a system which, having lost all innocence, would necessarily lose all wonder, was a touch of a very withering wit. And yet it will be well to remember that, in comparison with some other worlds, where the same work is done more weakly, and quite as wickedly, the utopia of the extremists really has something of the intellectual integrity which belongs to extremes, even of madness. In that sense, the two ironical adjectives are not merely ironical. The horrible human, or inhuman, hive described by Mr. Huxley's romance is certainly a base world, and a filthy world, and a fundamentally unhappy world. But it is in one sense a new world, and it is in one sense a brave world. At least a certain amount of bravery, as well as brutality, would have to be shown before anything of the sort could be established in the world of fact. It would need some courage, and even some self-sacrifice, to establish anything so utterly disgusting as that. But the same work is being done in other worlds that are not particularly new and not in the least brave. There are people of another sort, much more common and conventional, who are not only working to create such a paradise of cowardice, but who actually try to work for it through a conspiracy of cowards. The attitude of these people towards the family and the tradition of its Christian virtues is the attitude of men willing to wound and yet afraid to strike, or ready to sap and mine so long as they are not called upon to fire or fight in the open. And those who do this cover much more than half, or nearly two-thirds, of the people who write in the most respectable and conventional capitalist newspapers. It cannot be too often repeated that what destroyed the family in the modern world was capitalism. No doubt it might have been communism, if communism had ever had a chance outside that semi-Mongolian wilderness where it actually flourishes. But so far as we are concerned, what has broken up households and encouraged divorces, and treated the old domestic virtues with more and more open contempt, is the epoch and power of capitalism. It is capitalism that has forced a moral feud and a commercial competition between the sexes, that has destroyed the influence of the parent in favor of the influence of the employer, that has driven men from their homes to look for jobs, that has forced them to live near their factories or their firms instead of near their families, and, above all, that has encouraged, for commercial reasons, a parade of publicity and garish novelty, which is in its nature the death of all that was called dignity and modesty by our mothers and fathers. It is not the Bolshevist, but the boss, the publicity man, the salesman, and the commercial advertiser who have, like a rush and riot of barbarians, thrown down and trampled underfoot the ancient Roman statue of Verecundia. But because the thing is done by men of this sort, of course it is done in their own muggy and muddle-headed way, by all the irresponsible tricks of their foul suggestion and their filthy psychology. It is done, for instance, by perpetually guying the old Victorian virtues or limitations, which, as they are no longer there, are not likely to retaliate. It is done more by pictures than by printed words, because printed words are supposed to make some sense, and a man may be answerable for printing them. Stiff and hideous effigies of women in crinolines or bonnets are paraded as if that could possibly be all there was to see when Maud came into the garden, and was saluted by such a song. Fortunately, Maud's friends, who would have challenged the pressman and the photographer to a duel, are all dead, and these satirists of Victorianism are very careful to find out that all their enemies are dead. Some of their bold caricaturists have been known to charge an old-fashioned bathing machine as courageously as if it were a machine gun. It is convenient thus courageously to attack bathing machines, because there are no bathing machines to attack. Then they balance these things by photographs of the modern girl at various stages in the nudist movement, and trust that anything so obviously vulgar is bound to be popular. For the rest, the modern girl is floated on a sea of sentimental sloppiness, a continuous gush about her frankness and freshness, the perfect naturalness of her painting her face, or the unprecedented courage of her having no children. The whole is diluted with a dreary hypocrisy about comradeship, far more sentimental than the old-fashioned sentiment. When I see the family sinking in these swamps of amorphous, amorous futility, I feel inclined to say, give me the communists. Better Bolshevist battles and the brave new world than the ancient house of man rotting away silently by such worms of secret sensuality and individual appetite. The coward does it with a kiss, the brave man with a sword. But there is, curiously enough, a third thing of the kind, which I am really inclined to think that I dislike even more than the other two. It is not the communist attacking the family or the capitalist betraying the family. It is the vast and very astonishing vision of the Hitlerite defending the family. Hitler's way of defending the independence of the family is to make every family dependent on him and his semi-socialist state, and to preserve the authority of parents by authoritatively telling all the parents what to do. His notion of keeping sacred the dignity of domestic life is to issue peremptory orders that the grandfather is to get up at 5 in the morning and do dumbbell exercises, or the grandmother to march 20 miles to a camp to procure a swastika flag. In other words, he appears to interfere with family life more even than the Bolshevists do, and to do it in the name of the sacredness of the family. It is not much more encouraging than the other two social manifestations, but at least it is more entertaining.